If I need or should I do that?
No, you're. I have like wander around the federal.
Because I will also have this for the Zoom people, so
Oh, okay.
Zoom people can actually look.
It's camera.
And
Oh, Tahoe, that's not it.
so
Most
this
people pay.
should
Yes.
be working, but give me 1 second. Oh, I'm gonna. One, two. Four. So this works. You are free to stay here, Farha.
I think I'll be about here.
Okay. That works.
If that's good. I mean,
That's
you
perfect.
were
I was just
saying
wondering.
you guys
Yeah,
are trying to-
I was just wondering
Okay.
anywhere around the section. Well,
Okay. All right.
I'm kind of holding back to people's theater classes, if any, like just stay around your cue. You should be.
I will. Good to see you again. I like your hat. Very.
Partners, I have Hannah from Public Affairs. And I think we have Kantika. I don't know what department is she is from. He's from Scissors.
Hello. Hi.
So checking in for
Josephine Cashman for BNE.
Josephine. Josephine.
Thank you so much.
Okay, there you go.
That's Ashfaq, ASH FAQ.
Alright, you got it. Thank you. Molly from Health. Molly. Amy from Flip. Yeah, I'm gonna. All right, Kevin from Applied Math. There's no Kevin.
Attendance. Leah Williams, French department.
Right, I think we can start
Right.
very soon.
Thank you. With Kevin, we don't have him. Kevin who?
Or you can check online.
What?
We're gonna get going. We're gonna get going in.
Kevin who?
Like, not for you. Okay, I have Italian studies, Gustella. Got it. Tracy from public got it. Theater arts. Mohammed, Catherine Chen, computer science.
Just like the first round.
American studies. Yeah, Sarah.
Okay, we're going to start. I really don't. I was. Okay, everybody. We've got a big agenda, so we're going to start a bit more promptly today. Hopefully, can you hear me on Zoom? Mic check. On Zoom. I'm presuming yes at this point. Anders, can you hear me?
Can someone on Zoom please confirm that they can hear us?
Excellent, wonderful.
Beautiful. Anders.
So we have a big agenda today, and we've also got a guest speaker from the graduate school, current leader of the graduate school, Tal Lewis, to talk about a very important report for us to disseminate and understand. So first, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Seconded. 4. More people should put their hand up. 4. Against? Nobody. Done. Okay, we're going to allocate open floor time. Is there anything we want to talk about in the meeting on open floor time that anyone wants to bring up? Nothing online. If anything comes up throughout the meeting, please just put your hand up and we can do that as well. Second, can I have a motion to approve the October minutes? Those who are for? Those are against? Otherwise, whilst are you here? Excellent. So we're going to start off with a speaker with Dean Thomas Lewis, more common as Tal Lewis, who's going to present on the board here and to everyone online about the task force on doctoral education. So this is a huge development that's going to shift from ground. Please take note, this is going to affect every single department moving forward. Dean Lewis.
Thank you very much, Joe. And I think everyone can hear me, at least I'm being subtitled, so that's a good sign. So thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak with all of you. As Joe said, I'm Thomas Lewis. I usually go by my initials, Tal. I'm a professor in the Department of Religious Studies and serve as the interim dean of the graduate school. I've also been involved in the graduate school for the past several years, serving as the associate dean of academic affairs in the graduate school. So thinking a lot about graduate education at Brown for some time. I had the pleasure and honor last year of chairing the task force on doctoral education. And I wanted to spend a few minutes going through a number of slides, giving you an overview of some of the material. The report is available online on the Provost website. As I'm sure all of you saw Monday morning, first thing you opened up today at Brown, followed the links, right? First thing. All right. So it is there to review. It's pretty substantial. The report's about 100 pages, really substantial data in the appendices. We are not giving a quiz on it at the end, but there's a lot there. And I think it's a lot that really does speak to many different aspects of the graduate student experience, or specifically doctoral student experience. And part of what I'm going to talk about is that one of the things that was really emphasized by the committee or by the task force is the need to think not in terms of 1 or 2 tweaks or changes, but really think about all aspects of the graduate student experience. So if we could go on to the next slide would be great. So the task force itself was formed by Provost Richard Locke last fall and charged with developing recommendations for promoting outstanding, innovative graduate education that supports the university's missions in teaching as well as research, but also prepares students for desired career outcomes. And one of the things I want to highlight or emphasize is that throughout the conversations, there's a real sense that one of the things that's involved in doing right by our students is enabling them to launch into careers that they want, that they desire, right? And that was certainly one of the things we were thinking about and talking about a lot. There were three key areas about which we were charged with making recommendations. One of those had to do with the elements of excellence, what really constitutes excellence in doctoral education. Secondly, the matter of institutional structures to support that excellence. So thinking about departmental structures, the relationship, a couple of our programs that span different areas, thinking of a program like biomedical engineering, for instance. And then thirdly, talking about accountability, accountability for programs, accountability for individual faculty members, advisors, as well as accountability for students. And how do we think about all of those? I would note that the charge of the task force was explicitly about doctoral education, and there was a lot to do there. So we really did focus there rather than on master's education, which isn't to say we weren't concerned about master's education, but we did really try to focus our energies just to try to make that much more progress. So if we can go on to the next slide. The task force had a total of 18 members, made up of faculty, a couple of staff, doctoral students from across the university. Those were doctoral students from a range of different programs who were nominated through the GSC nomination process. And I'll say a little more about how vital they were to our work. So we met a lot. We met 23 times, at least 23 times over the course of the year. There were also a number of smaller meetings. And I think of us as having drawn on three main sources of information. One is we looked at some studies that were done by foundations like the Mellon Foundation, University of Chicago, some other peer institutions that have also been really reviewing graduate education recently. And so we wanted to learn from what they did rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. Secondly, we looked at a lot of qualitative and quantitative data on Brown's doctoral programs. So some of that had to do with the data on admissions, matriculations, placement data. Placement data, you'll see in a minute, was very important. But also the doctoral education survey that some of you may remember doing in March, April, every spring. You get asked to please fill out the survey. And this is one of a number of contexts in which those responses, that data that hopefully comes from all of you, is really an important part of the thinking and planning about how graduate education at Brown is going. So just a shout out for the importance of those surveys as a really vital way to provide input. Thirdly, though, we also really wanted to talk to the actual people who make up graduate education at Brown. So part of that was meetings with faculty members, but there were also a series of forums with graduate students themselves. Those were run by the graduate student members of the task force, explicitly for the reason of creating an environment where the sense was from the students, people would feel more free to express how they were really experiencing things. So the three members of the graduate student members of the task force, Rachel Kalisher, Sagan Kildane, and Carolina Mejia Pena, did a fantastic job, and they really pulled together a kind of synthesis of the feedback they were hearing in the sessions with the graduate students, and that really had an impact. And I will say one of the places that comes up, we'll come back to this, is around the issue of graduate advising, because advising came up as an issue in the conversations with faculty. That was definitely important to faculty. But in the conversations with students, the matter of the quality of advising was so much more prominent. And we said that in the report, right? And we highlighted that contrast. And I will say that in the conversations that I've had with other groups about the report, that is one of the points that has gotten a lot of attention. That's caught people's eye. And that's thanks to your input, and really thank you to the work that the graduate student members of the task force did. Let's go on to the next slide. On the basis of all of that work, we formed what I think was a pretty broad and comprehensive view of many elements of graduate education at Brown. On the one hand, we didn't try to do 50 program reviews and come up with a detailed analysis of each program. We didn't think we could do that as well as we could looking at a slightly higher level. But we did look at many different aspects of the program, and the next 4 slides give you a little bit of a sense of that. So first, just as a kind of orientation, right, this fall, we have 50 PhD programs, a total of 1,570 PhD students. And you can see how they're distributed among different divisions. The part of the right side of the slide there gives you a sense of the demographic composition of the most recently entering cohorts, right? The last 10 years, basically. You can see in terms of the percentage of students who identify as women has climbed a little above 50%. So when you look at the difference over 10 years, that's actually a pretty significant shift. International students, for reasons you can imagine, went down a bit in 2020, but are now 38%, pretty close to where they have been historically for much of this time. And you can see there has been real movement in the percentage of the domestic students who identify as students from historically underrepresented groups. I would note even that what looks like the slight decline there from 30% to 29%, in fact, in actual numbers, the number this fall is as high as the high point from a couple of years ago. So the total cohort is a little larger, so the percentage is slightly smaller. Then to give a snapshot, we wanted to look at, a partial view is what do things look like at the beginning and what do things look like at the end? And that's sort of easier to represent on slides than some of the other data. So the next couple of slides really look at that. So if you look at the next slide, really looks at the admission process, right? So this is looking at all of our PhD programs across the university. The total, that round bar with the numbers at the top, are the total number of applicants to our PhD programs, which has grown quite substantially. You can see, well, you can almost see the acceptance rate, depending on how quickly I speak and whether the bar takes up two bars. But at the bottom, an acceptance rate kind of between thank you, Joe, an acceptance rate between 8 and 9%. So extremely selective admissions, which should not surprise you, but it gives you a sense of the quality of the students who are being recruited. And one of the things we also think about is of students to whom Brown makes offers, how many of them just choose Brown as the place to pursue their PhD? And you see that number going up to 49%. So roughly half of the offers are accepted. I would note that kind of blip down to 43%, largely because of COVID. Many students couldn't come, and they wanted to come in the fall, but were not able to. And so they show as deferrals and not as matriculating. You'll note we also skipped 2021 because the majority of our PhD programs did not admit any new students in 2021. So we skipped that year. And that was in part to make sure that we're supporting the students who are here. If we go to the next slide. We also then looked at what things look like on the other end. Right? Are we launching students into those careers that they are interested in? So you can see on the left by the overall numbers and then the breakdown by division. And overall, this is looking at graduates from 2010 through 2020. The breakdown is 58% are currently in academia. That includes a number of different kinds of positions, and I'll break that down in just a moment. Significant number in for-profit institutions and industry typically, right? And then some others in government and nonprofit institutions. We also wanted to break that down further in terms of those within academia, what are those positions? But let me just say a little bit in terms of framing this. I think one of the things that task force talked about a lot is what counts as a good outcome and what is a success. And I think one of the key things that was important for us is articulating that there are a lot of different kinds of very good outcomes, some of which are in academia and some of which are beyond academia. And so there was really a sense that on the one hand, we want to make sure that we are supporting and validating the career outcomes that are beyond the university. At the same time, we wanted to pay attention to what all of you are looking for. Okay, so one of the things we looked at is data on what are the career aspirations of graduate students, because it's one thing to be going to a job outside the university system because you really want to. It's another thing to be doing that because you're disappointed and you really wanted to be in a professorial position, for instance. So those were, we spent a lot of time talking and thinking about those issues, and I think really wanted to say as much as we could both about the importance of a wide range of outcomes, but also taking seriously what students' interests and motivations and desires are. So let's look quickly at the next slide. This breaks down of those within academia into the kinds of academic positions, right? And so here we are looking at students who graduated between 2010 and 2016. So we wanted to give people a little bit of time to settle, right? Often in the first year or couple of years after completing the degree, students are still in shorter term positions, postdoc, something like that. But we were looking for possibilities where after that kind of transitional couple of years, graduates are moving into positions with a kind of stability and reliability that people are in positions that they don't experience as highly precarious, as uncertain in various ways. So you see those in brown are those who are tenured, the red being tenure track. The yellow of other faculty covers a lot of different things. So it might be someone who is a senior lecturer, a fantastic, stable, comfortable job that can be a very good career trajectory and outcome. On the other hand, it could also be a position where someone has a couple of adjunct positions that are not the ideal in that they don't give the stability that people are looking for. So we did spend time talking through this. I think it is interesting looking at how some of these vary by division. We could come back to this if you wanted to. Let's go on though to kind of where this leaves us, right? So in broadly, we saw a lot of strength in the findings. Looking at the growth in the applicant pools, competitive process, we're getting outstanding students and they're accepting our offers. That's fantastic. Also, the increase in the number of students from historically underrepresented groups, suggesting that we are able to attract the very best students from a diverse range of backgrounds. One of the other issues that comes up in a lot of conversations about graduate education nationally is the median time to degree, how long people are spending in their programs. And on the whole, Brown is doing well there. We look at that average data in terms of the time people are taking to complete the degree. And also the strong placement that most graduates are moving into positions where, whether they're in a university or not, the degree has a transformative effect. It's enabling them to do something that they really couldn't do had they not been here. Right? So the idea is people are using their degrees in ways that seems valuable. At the same time, we identify what we see, the task force sees, as some areas for possible improvement. Right? One of those is that among those pursuing academic careers, there were some indicators that Brown may be producing fewer field leading scholars than some other peer institutions. So part of what we looked at there were some of the comments from external reviews that said there are important opportunities to be updating some of the curricular requirements. Things like the structure of qualifying exams or the reading lists for those. And we want to take those very seriously. We'll talk about that a little bit more too. There was also some concern, again, regarding the curriculum and training in some programs, and that's where we really looked to the external reviews that are conducted in part by scholars in the same discipline from other institutions. So we looked at what those reports have been over the last few years. We spent a lot of time talking about climate, especially for women, students from historically underrepresented groups, though in some areas more than others. Right? But there was a lot of attention to the importance of climate and the importance of climate to excellence. We talked about that in terms of what the students articulated very well as the kind of whisper network of when you're admitted new students and they're deciding whether or not to come to Brown, what do? You talk to current students. That's what you should do. And that's one of the places where a challenging climate can really lead to difficult situations recruiting the next group of outstanding students. And also the issue of the quality of advising. If you look at the report, advising takes up a lot of room. It took up a lot of our conversations, and that's one of the areas where Brown feels like should have an advantage of our relatively smaller scale. That means we ought to be doing an absolutely stellar job in advising. And we have many stellar academic advisors at the graduate level, I think. But there are some areas definitely for improvement there. So that Finally, in some fields where there were some concerns about attrition, but that varied a lot by different areas. So the recommendations that resulted from this, if we go on to the next slide. I think part of what's important with the recommendations is framing them, right? So as I mentioned, a lot of the idea is that launching students into these positions is not a matter of, let's change this one thing or that one thing, but rather we really need to attend to the entire student life cycle, right? That begins with the outreach that we do to prospective applicants before an application is even submitted, all the way through the admissions process, coursework in the first couple of years, teaching that students are doing, their own research, as well as launching them into job markets. That's really crucial. One of the things that means concretely is there are a lot of recommendations. There is an executive summary at the beginning. It's about 5 pages. You've got a lot just for that if you don't want to read all 100 pages. Secondly, that the recommendations get a lot of different levels, right? So part of it's about what individual faculty do, part is about programs, part is about the graduate school. And thirdly, the importance of leveraging our strengths, right? Brown's culture of interdisciplinarity, as well as a deep commitment to diversity and inclusion. Concretely, I want to put a few of these recommendations up. If we can go to the next slide. This gives us a matrix. This is still not all of the recommendations. We can leave this up and I can, let me highlight 2 or 3 of these, right? Looking at curriculum, one of the pieces we talked about is supporting scholarship in emerging areas. We were just talking about environmental humanities as one example, right? Where there is both a lot of new exciting work in disciplines moving things forward, but also that there are a lot of cases where some of the most dynamic and intellectually exciting aspects of our disciplines are also ones that are attracting students we have not historically attracted. So part of attracting students from historically underrepresented groups is making sure that the scholarship and the areas of research that we're engaged in are at the cutting edge of our fields. Secondly, making sure that we're reviewing the structures of our curriculum, particularly around the structure of exams and advancement to candidacy. And we could talk about developing regular models for engaging or intervening in programs where there are significant climate issues. And let me just mention, lastly, expanding centralized resources for career planning for beyond academia. That was one we spent a lot of time talking about and thinking about the role of Career Lab. As you know, not every faculty member is going to have the experience and background to be a great advisor for all possible career trajectories. And so making sure that there are some centralized resources that people can build on. I'm going to stop there. I guess the one other thing I would say, this is a report from a particular task force group. Their service has ended. They don't have to serve indefinitely. It's not a chronic symptom to be on the task force. But what that means is we're not revising this report further, but what it actually means, whether it matters, is a matter of how it gets taken up and engaged. And for that, it's really crucial to be getting input and engaging a lot of different groups. So I've spoken with the faculty executive committee. I've spoken with the chairs and directors. I will be speaking with a broader faculty forum later on. We've talked about it at the Graduate Student Council, and et cetera. But what I want to emphasize is that your input is really vital to thinking about where we go next and the difference that this makes. So I'm glad to take questions about the report. I'm also really glad to hear just input and comments of, you missed this thing or this other thing is really important. Or yes, we really like seeing that recommendation. But also feel free to follow up. There is on the Provost website, there is a form for additional input and feedback, and that is really there for a reason, to be taken very seriously as we think about the next steps. So let me pause there and comments and questions from you.
Fantastic. Any questions? Oh, yes. If anyone has questions, Mel has set up a mic, so Mel doesn't have to run around the room this time.
Should be on.
And then we've got one online next. Well, we'll take the one online first, that's Mel setting up, if that's okay. If Mel can quickly fix it. Give it a quick fix. Okay,
Should we do the online one?
we'll take the online one first, if that's okay, Sean. So this is from Deeps. It's yes, it is long. One issue my department has is recruitment and job hunting. We are in STEM, and no one of our faculty seems to have a real pulse on what non-academic industry jobs exist. Most of our graduate students want more recruiters to come to our campus. It's not uncommon for recent grads to postdoc with their advisor because they are struggling to find a job. We need support in finding non-academic and academic careers. The Career Centre and other career help events offered by Brown are relevant for our students. So it's about more relevant for our department in particular in STEM.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that we have been trying to work on is expanding the level of support for graduate students within Career Lab. And particularly because if you think about the range of, I mean, it's not surprising that faculty, many of whom have spent a lot of their lives in academia, are not going to be the best resources on what else there is. And so that's why we really do want to build up some of that centrally. If, I would say in the last year, we have a new person who's there who's focusing specifically on PhD students. And I think she's really been ramping up the programming. That's really exciting. I would also encourage people from, like, if a particular department would like more engagement from Lynn in Career Lab, certainly reaching out to her is appropriate. We also realize, though, that one person isn't going to be enough for everyone. So, I mean, just capacity-wise, we need more. And so that is one of the areas that we really do see our investment. Thank you.
Yeah, I know you mentioned about the phone number.
Carryables.
Hello, good.
Yes.
I noticed that you mentioned earlier about the low level. You said that how many of those competitive or so why would Brown want to increase the number of scholars of the academia that considering that especially in physical science industry. I know you kind of mentioned speaking of such heavy scholars money, something like maybe bigger how in general that maybe Brown can.
So I didn't mean to say, and I'm sorry if I misspoke on this, that we were wanting more people to be going into academia. So part of what we were really highlighting is the importance of recognizing that a lot of fantastic research in chemistry, for instance, is happening in all kinds of settings beyond academia, and that there's a lot of great work out there. Chemistry is one example. But the other kind of opportunities on that, I mean, part of what we were thinking about is when we want people going into field leading positions, some of that's in academia. There's fantastic research and really vital research going on in various sites in industry, for instance, or in certain government settings. So we're not saying it needs to be in academia. We do think about, are we preparing our students to get the kind of leading positions, whether that's within academia or within other kinds of industry positions. And I think, you know, the physical sciences are a great example, because on the one hand, of our 4 divisions, the smallest percentage of students who are going into academia. But of those who go into academia, they're doing really well in the sense of tenure track jobs, which have the kind of stability that has a certain advantage, right, as compared to still being in a postdoc or several when you're 7 years out or something along those. So we do really want to validate and appreciate, and then provide the support for students pursuing a wide range.
And to follow up question for that, who's the person again?
So she goes by Lynn, who's in Career Lab, who focuses specifically on PhD students. It doesn't mean that she's the only one who will talk to PhD students, but she really focuses on building up programming, and as well as some of the kind of more individual support.
So we can go to her if Just like the issue.
Yes.
Or recommend other types of.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll make sure
Thank you.
to incorporate the sign up and the information for Lynn as well onto the minutes to disseminate as well.
That's great.
Sorry. Okay.
I just have like a curiosity question. So the statistics or the data you have for people who graduated and whether in academia or industry or whatever position you're in, was that survey data? Was that 100% of all students that graduated?
It's a great question. It is based on data that is collected by a company called Academic Analytics that is based on web scraping. So they're really good at this. Brown has right around a 90% find rate in terms of where our alums are now from them. For outcome data, that's actually really high quality. Outcome data is really hard to get consistent. So that, we've had individual departments collect, but they often are missing things as well. So that's where that's coming from. We also do surveys of alums, but the most comprehensive we have is that, and it's about a 90% find rate. Obviously more in some disciplines, one department happens to have more than people they can find than others. But that's where it's a great question. It's something that kind of preoccupies me because we really want to know where people end up and you kind of want to know 100%. But I think I've come to realize we're not going to be at 100%. And sometimes there's a lag, like what might show up on some of the data that we look at might be a year old. Thanks.
Fantastic. Are there any other questions online? Oh, Far has a question.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes, sure.
So you showed that the percent of accepted or matriculated student of HEG went up. Do you know how many percent of those HEG applied, or what is the rate of?
So that's the percentage of the incoming class, right? So in terms of the percentage of the applications is a little lower than that, but I don't have the number off the top of my head. And obviously it varies some by division.
Fantastic. Oh, yes, final question, and then we'll let Venus go home late.
Can you explain a little bit more about what we can communicate back to master's students about this type of analysis maybe being in the works for them, or more rationale on why this was a PhD?
Yeah, well, I think it's it's a great question. And I think as I think about master's education at Brown, I think of it as a really exciting moment in that the School of Professional Studies is really expanding and developing support that is master's student specific. And that when you're coming, say, for a 15-month program or even a 2-year program, is typically, there are a lot of things that are different about that than coming and spending 5 to 6 years on a PhD. So things like, how soon do I need to be thinking about my next steps, my jobs? So part of what we are doing is really trying to expand the support for master's students, partly in terms of career support and also other kinds of student support, focusing especially on the School of Professional Studies. So there's a lot going on there in terms of their expanding staff and so forth that I think is part of the goes or pairs well with this work that was being done in terms of the doctoral programs. I hope that helps.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
Dean
much.
Lewis, thank you very much. Fantastic. Super duper. So we're going to make sure we disseminate the information of the specific grad liaison at the Careers Lab.
And if you could also include the link like to the feedback form or the
Yeah,
program that is on
we'll
the
put the
website.
feedback link on as well.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening at home safe.
Thank you.
And it's something that came up, this came about this was last year in the spring. If you check the Workday, not Workday, Brown, Daily, today Brown, by the brain, I believe. So it's constantly posting. They're doing huge amounts of programming in and outside of academia as well. Also for those in the humanities, and I know this, if you're not in the humanities, the Language Centre is also doing a lot of programming on how to write your letters and get going as well. It's that annoying thing of the emails that we get a lot of emails, and I send a lot of emails, and I'm not sorry, but the whole point is it's that sifting through. We're going to make sure both of those links are on these minutes so you can disseminate to your group. Okay, updates from El Presidente. What's that? Our favorite thing to do. We're having an election. So next, everyone's term who is on the exec now, all of our terms end in December. Every single position is up for election. All of the information on the positions is linked in the agenda. Please disseminate. Everyone is up for election. There will be minutes here. Ideally, if you're wanting to stand, please either reach out to me personally, read this, or speak to the person who's doing it as well. Because even if you don't get that position, or there's another one you want to go for, come stand and apply. It is work off your time, but it's a nice thing to do. It's good for community building. It's good for the CV. Talking about jobs. So we're going to be going through that. All positions are for 1 year, so it's December until December, other than the Masters Advocacy Chair and the Tech Chair, which is every semester, just because Masters and Tech people are quicker to get jobs. Secondly, bi-directional feedback pilots. So this is something that we've been advocating for in general for us as graduate students, both Masters and PhD, on not just getting feedback from our department, but creating a structure in which we can feed back to tenured professors on what they do well or what they don't do well in such a way that we don't get penalized. It's currently being piloted in 3 departments, taking 3 different models. The provost is taking it as sort of his special project before he leaves, and the new provost will institute it and roll it out next semester. However, this is going to need a bit of online hand raising as well. How many people actually get feedback in terms of when you TA a course, how many get feedback in their departments on courses that they TA?
And people on Zoom, you can raise your hand so we can count you as well.
Like,
It's professor specific, okay, so there is a model.
are we promising the professors fill out the feedback form, but just put good upon?
Technically, yes, so we're improving on other departments. And what about those who don't get any feedback on their teaching at all when you're TAing a class? So it is quite common. And what about your standing letters at the end of the year? How common is it? Do you get a letter at the end of the year and you see the physical letter of standing? Hands in the air if you do. Like it's at the end of the year, you're meant to get a letter of good standing, like showing where you are in the department. This is quite important for international, because if you're not, you get kicked out. Good. So we are getting it, but it's not perfect. It's trying to work out if we're going to implement bi-directional feedback, we need to actually get feedback. Excellent. The next thing is Provost, academic excellence and investing in research. This is an approximate $1 billion plan that Brown is going to be rolling out in the next couple of years, investing in research, creating new centres, making sure that we remain competitive. Hopefully your faculty is aware of this, but moving forward, what's going to be happening is there's going to be a lot more money up for grabs for like investment into your department. So this is something good to make sure that your department is aware of, and also you're aware of moving forward. And finally, the union, Glow, is running its bargaining survey. Make sure you please talk to your steward, departmental steward. It is sort of like a climate survey. However, what they want is qualitative data on your experiences. They're going to ask you about what's the most important things for you. The union we work in tandem with the union. We are 2 sides of the same coin. The union is very, very important. It is important that you get your points across, whether we want to see another increase in your wage, whether you want to see clearer contracts over health sickness, feedback, anything like that. It is so important that you make sure this is communicated to your steward, that they take down. If not, please make sure you go to one of the union meetings. They are always there. They're there to help, just like we are. Any questions on anything from the El Presidente? No questions? Good. On to noms. Project.
So I've got two things. One, I'm thrilled to announce that the nomination committee has recognized two new civic groups. One of those is the French Theory Group, which is operated in conjunction with a similar group at Harvard. As the pandemic was operated through Zoom. Now they're going official. Great. They talk about structuralism, critical theory, modernism, a lot of stuff that I've been familiar with, but it sounds really cool.
Yes, you can
Fantastic.
comment, yes.
But exactly, so, it's originally prepared at Harvard and then kind of spread out through Zoom. Now we co-organize it across, Harvard and here. And we do a lot of, critical theory and French texts as they would apply in French origin. But part of our motivation is being doctoral students, kind of reflects the fact that most disciplines, especially in the humanities, have some type of like critical baggage from the 20th century Europe, particularly France, whether or not we're talking ethnography, Lévi-Strauss, literary criticism, etc. And so in reading some of these texts that we think are foundational to what criticism in our disciplines looks like, we hope to also kind of think about what we're supposed to do when we're called to maybe do a reading or to, write our dissertations and use sort of critical apparatuses. And so this year, our theme is reading. And so we're reading different texts. So we're reading about reading, which has been fun to say. But so we're reading different texts and take an approach to either what does it mean to do a reading, whether or not that's, how do we read, or also what would it mean to do a queer reading, what would it mean to do analytic reading, etc. Yeah, and if anyone's interested, we can listen.
Yeah, I was going to say that if you're interested, like, get in touch with me, but obviously you should get in touch with that.
Give me your information.
So that would be the other group that has recognized South Asian students in STEM. The organizer is also recognized on your site. That one is what it sounds like. It is an organization meant to focus specifically on South Asian students in STEM fields and offer support and community support. I am happy to provide information on content that anyone who is interested. And they will also have full access to SAO funding as well as opportunities. The second thing, many of you may recall a bit of an issue last meeting with regards to which positions on the graduate council were actually open. I once again apologize for that little slip up in the record keeping. But as a result of that confusion, I am still looking for a physical science representative for the graduate council. If you're wondering what physical sciences is, it's pretty much anything STEM that is not biological. So there are many, many people here in person and online who would qualify, and I will take any applicants. So I'll go ahead and link the form in a minute. But yeah.
Do your duty, sign up STEM, come on. Someone in STEM, sign up. Sean, are you putting yourself forward?
This is the question for the night. Not intentionally making.
So nomination committee, we actually recently had that we really wanted to make sure to find the harm that we confirmed they might include on, so we advised them prior to recognition to define their role more clearly so as to make themselves occupying a separate niche.
And then also on the GST website as well, we have a full list of all recognized groups there as well. So it might be an idea for us to get a blurb as well to put there on contact information. Because this is a new initiative, this is why I say it's a new initiative, but it's finally getting going. So we're going to make sure that we keep on rolling out, keep on positively keep going. So that's something that I've made a note of, and we'll make sure to update the website with small blurbs of these organisations as well. But if you go to the GSD website on recognised groups, it's there of all the ones that are there. And usually they're quite well known within the communities that they're serving. But obviously, if there's a new one, like the South Asian subgroup, French reading, great reading group, what it is you talk to NOMs, they walk you through the process. So then you can get an SAO account. And then once you have your SAO account, you see the treasurer. And then the treasurer gives you
The information on what's required
Yeah.
to apply for recognized status is also on the DSC website. It mainly consists of having, I think, it's 10 members, majority must be graduate students, clear process for succession of various officer positions, and a very thorough description of your group's purview and activities.
Okay, also, does the website also with inactive groups and what's considered inactive?
Recognized groups are required to pretty much respond to an email once a year that comes from the GSC, reaffirming that they're still active, giving current officers and membership. That's pretty much all that's required.
Okay, so let's say they don't respond to it and they're inactive. Is that a
If they do
email?
not
Is that maybe-
respond, they are considered.
Well, sure, but I'm saying like for everyone else, because the unfortunate thing I see is some of these groups are inactive, we don't know that as a group, like a student body.
I
and some
have
people
run
try to
into
sign
that
up
a
for
little.
that. Yeah.
So part of what happened this year was, in communication with Ray, we actually realized that the GSC's records of which groups were active or inactive did not match up with SAO's records of which groups were active and inactive. And this is because SAO actually has a separate process by which it handles groups being considered inactive. I'm working with Ray on resolving that. It will hopefully in the future be entirely under GSC purview. Previously, the same sort of standard was applied to the graduate student groups as was being applied to undergraduate groups, which of course do not have a separate council organized recognition process. So
we're working on
on
it. That's like
Okay.
we're trying to sort it out, but like the issue is we've got a historical issue with SAO. They've just appointed for the first time ever the graduate liaison. Who thought we
On a related note, if you in fact happen to be a member of a group that is currently regarded as inactive and you would like to reactivate that group with the GSD and SAO, please see me.
Yeah. Wonderful, thank you very much. That's it. On next to, oh, yeah.
I'm gonna link the form in the minutes, like right on that bullet point. Thank you.
International.
Yeah, I just have two small updates. The last event that we did was International Student Mixer. It was pretty much a success. Around 180 people RSVP for part, around 150 people showed up. Yeah, the next event is I'm trying to form this around Friendsgiving for international students, but everyone will be invited. Yeah, and I'm trying to get it around 18th November, but I have to talk to other people to finalize it. But that's mostly free Thanksgiving event for everyone, but targeted towards international students. But yeah, that's mostly from.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Pleasure.
Thank you. So the main updates are, first of all, the conference travel fund. The application form is closed last week, and now the Finance committee is basically reviewing the applications. The results are going to be announced by November 8th. This year, it's more competitive. Because people actually started traveling and going for professional development. So we'll do our best. And two other funding sources, recognized groups can apply for money, for funding, up to $500 if you need to conduct some events, community building events, something that requires funding. So here are the application forms in a minute. As well as internal events. It's for up to $400 fund. Anyone can apply. Anyone who is in charge of organizing a project, event, or something like that on campus can apply. Yeah, as soon as it's approved, usually it doesn't take a lot of time. Then you're connected to a graduate school representative who then works with you on reimbursement. That's how. Yeah, everyone is encouraged to apply. It is, when is it gonna be
It's
reopened?
going to reopen once the GSC reconvenes in January, February. I think will be the next time. And then what happens is that will cover all conferences for the next semester. So anything that happens, so basically anything that after like January 15th is the cut-off date for applications this time. So anything that's like January 15th afterwards, that goes on to the next, you apply for the next one.
Yeah, so it's important to remember about the dates. There's some applications where we see the dates are, let's say, August, and that was not, you're not eligible. So you're really careful with the application form, and whatever within the semester date, you're eligible for funds. I want to emphasize that it's not just conference travel, it's also professional development. What if people are not aware of that, and you can apply to have to for travel to do the job, and even though now almost like online still, or something else, professional development related. Any more questions? Okay, that's it.
Next on to tech.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you all for the patience with these. I am trying really hard to make this better for people on Zoom too. My main point for today is that I'm really interested in doing a accessibility survey with y'all. It's already linked in the minutes. You can, as department reps, you can fill it out, but if you want to share it with your departments as well, you can. The idea is that I would like to collect a little bit more information from you guys and feedback about how we can improve the accessibility of our meetings as well as our events. And I would also just like to know if there's population of disabled grad students out there that feel excluded somehow from our events, just to make sure that we are being as open as we can for everyone. It's going to be entirely anonymous. And due to the nature, obviously, of the topic, it is completely voluntary as well. If you don't feel comfortable sharing that, that is fine. But yeah, I would really appreciate having any feedback from y'all on that. And yeah, I also wanted to add an extra note that all of our positions are up for election in December. Me particularly, I'm probably not going to be running again. So if you would be interested in being a tech chair, come to me, let's talk. I can tell you about the responsibilities and the roles. But sadly, I'm a second year and qualifying exams are coming up. So I kind of need to make sure I don't get kicked out for that one in the first place. But yeah, that's pretty much my update. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Patience is a good virtue to have as tech chat. Some people struggle with Google Forms.
I'm not
Not
gonna
look-
point to
not
me for
looking
you.
not looking at anybody. Excellent, wonderful. On next to social comments.
All right, so a few updates and initiatives I want to talk about. The hygiene products, I think I emailed it out to all the reps. And I see a handout of people who actually emailed it out to their departments. Those who did not raise hands, I want that done by the end of the week.
Y'all
So-
better get on.
Right, I'll talk to you guys. I know your name. I have it there. No, we also emailed it out as another initiative to all the departments. Can I see a hands of departments that emailed you guys the resources? Did anyone get email from their department? We emailed the department and graduate program official. Okay, cool. Anyone did not get my hygiene email that was pulled as a spam? No.
What it is that?
A lot of people, if you did not get an email from me about the hygiene product, some reason Brown is censoring the word hygiene and menstrual and tampons for some reason. So if you didn't get the email, check your spam. If there, I'll send those again. But we are trying to work with facility issues, right? Trying to work with the facility to make sure these products are available in all the buildings. So different things we have done. We have gotten a lot of response that there are a couple buildings that are not covered, but we also saw, for example, the Geochem, the ERC, and the Sydney Frank, some of the buildings to have started to get these hygiene products. So that's a good note. We also have the location of these hygiene products live on Brown University app. So if you can look at there and then put a map in and then go there as well. Another initiative, or at least we're trying to have these available to all non-gendered and male-gendered bathrooms as well. So we're working on them as well as having trash bins available for male-gendered bathrooms. So we'll keep working with the facility on that to push that issues to make sure this gets done. We're meeting with them next week. I will let you know. But if you guys have any questions or concerns, please connect with me and then the wonderful community that are working on it. Please, yeah.
Feedback from my department to that question was that the hygiene products that are made really available at the facilities are not great. And my department actually, we go to the manager or department that has higher hygiene products. That is fine.
Thank you for that feedback.
ENA,
What is that?
Egyptology and Interior.
Thank you for that feedback. We will relay it out that you're giving us like that product. Thank you for telling that. We'll write it out. So something I also noticed, different bathrooms have different types of products. So we wanted to make sure it's more standardized and then everyone has the same amount of products with same good quality. Probably the best quality as Brown can get us. We don't even have any at this point, but I will relay your message. Thank you. Second thing we started to work in the communication committee along with VP Ganesh, who's on Zoom, is working with the graduate school on DEI initiative. Do people know if they have a DIAP committee or diversity action plan committee in their department? Perfect. Yay, a lot of people have it and we know about it. That's great. The one thing we're trying to do is trying to bring all the DIAP committee together to share ideas. So some of us are new in the process, some of the departments are lower in the process. So we're working on with the grad school. We'll be working with the grad school to make sure that happens. We're all starting in the same position and share ideas because some departments are doing great in their DA initiatives. Some departments could use some help if they're getting started. So we'll work on that. Any question or any feedback on that? Those of you raised your hand, can I just see you at the end of all of it so you can write your name down so we know what the departments are and what has been done so we can connect you all together. Perfect. You guys are awesome. And the third thing I want to talk about was just also going to be another GFS or Grafton Council initiative is transportation. Anders was the previous texture had worked on some of those issues, for example, frequent shuttles, less money to spend on parking for graduate students. I can go on and on, but these are some of the initiatives we're going to be starting to work on. If you have any transportation related issues that you want to bring up, please see me or just chat with me that, hey, this is an issue we're facing, or I can just ask you right now, do any of you guys have issues with ground transportation in terms of parking, bus pass, shuttle?
All the above.
All the above, raise your hand. Perfect. So we're going to try to work with the grad school. We don't know how far we'll get, but we'll try our best to see if we can hopefully get some cheaper parking, getting our car less hit in Brown University parking lots. So I'll update you in the next meeting on where we are.
Fantastic, wonderful. We are next up to social.
Okay, social.
Just to recap, we had a very successful Halloween social at Narragansett. It was really fun. Moving forward though, we are planning the winter formal. So we have some details to share now. It will be December 2nd, save the date, at the Waterfire Arts Center. We may have to charge money, we don't want to, but it is expensive.
We are trying to partner with the med school to invite their students not to reduce costs, but and communication with them has been a bit difficult. So if anyone has friends on the med school council board, Senate, I know you do. Let them know you really want to be med students.
They asked us in the first place.
Yeah, we also would love to have a cute little theme. So if anyone has a good theme idea, let us know. We'll be here ready to listen. That's about all we've got for you guys. Yes.
Do you know about space plans for this so far? Because I know a lot of people, most of the people I talked to couldn't get into the Halloween party.
Yeah, this one has a much larger capacity, so we can have up to 800 people in the space. So
And the
it's,
more people that come, the cheaper it will be.
yeah,
We're still like the social just said, we've not had any communications on potential partnership. Once we have partnership, and then work out the price structure, but with all this is the only event we charge throughout the year. It's at cost.
and
We're not
we'll
making-
send out like a tentative who's interested, so we can get a good number and then kind of like tailor the food and drink according to that as well. So, yeah.
We had a theme suggestion in the Zoom of Starry Night.
Okay, we're writing it down. Thank you.
Noted.
Also about the Halloween social, just because we don't have the budget to do a ton of big socials. So if you want more bigger socials, make some noise, vote for more money for social events. Thank you.
Just welcome to the grad school. We just went to a big conference at the IU with all the other IUs. We do the most out of any other council with the least amount of money. It's quite funny. We have the least amount of money. Some universities that have budgets in the millions, they still charge people to go into their social.
They charge people for every event. They make money off their students for their social events. They made $100,000 off their students. So we're trying not to do that. Yeah. I do think we wouldn't do that. Different.
Masters, any questions about socials? December 2nd.
It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so socials for master students. Pumpkin painting last month was a huge success. We ran out of pumpkins, although to be fair, I was not here. I was in New York for IB Plus. But we had over 70 people come, and fortunately we had like only about 30 something pumpkins. You're supposed to get 55, but they ran out of the size we wanted, and we had to get slightly bigger ones. It couldn't fit any more in the car. So my apologies to anyone that tried to get one. But the next social will be a board game night coming up, I guess, this month now, since it's November 17th here in the GSL from 7 to 9 p.m. And next, if you remember, at the beginning of the semester, we voted on some funding for GSE swag items, and I'm happy to report that they were ordered and they were just delivered today. The graduate school, we got stickers, bottle opener keychains, and notepads, all with the GSE logo / branding on it. So be on the lookout for those soon. And then if any of you have seen the Be Well on the Go parts around campus, they have like sexual health supplies and stress relief stuff. We're gonna get one of those here in the lounge. It's actually being installed tomorrow. And I'm meeting with them as they're gonna bring it over. So coming, and it's gonna be really exciting. And then a few advocacy points specific. Well, the first one isn't as specific for master students, but just one thing that came up at IB Plus, I was with Abdullah at this session. We're really looking to expand support and resources and build community for graduate student parents. So I'm in talks with SPS about how best to do that for master's students, but of course, we want to do this for PhD students as well. So it's just something that's on our minds. If you know someone that's a grad student parent, or if you have any input on this, please reach out. Let us know. So as we're in talks about this and brainstorming ideas of how best to do, reach out to this particular group of students. Just let us know. We can do it in a more effective way. And then the other thing is mentorship and advising resources for master's students. Of course, there are some master's students that are here for only 1 year. I'm here for 2 years since I'm an MPH student, but either way, it's a very short amount of time. Want to make sure that master's students can get the most out of their time here. So one thing is pre-orientation campus page that's in development. I don't know exactly what it's going to have, but I definitely want to make sure it has resources for people to, like, how do I get connected to research? How, where do I go for this, etc. And I still need to connect with Morgan over at SPS on that, but I just wanted to let you know something like that is in development. And then there is also a med student panel that I'm organizing in conjunction with Jennifer Nazarino from SPS. We're going to have some alumni from Brown and answer questions for anyone that's interested in applying to med school. And it's not just going to be for master's students, it's for anyone in graduate school. So if you or anyone else is interested in a career in medicine, then please stay on the lookout. Details will be sent out soon. We're thinking the week of November 14th. Still trying to look at everyone's schedules. And of course, still trying to advocate for other like pre-professional stuff like pre-law, other stuff like that. So that's still on my mind as well. It's not just medicine. But that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions?
We have a question from Zoom. People would like to know who they can contact if they're grad parents and they have some feedback.
So at the moment, in terms of feedback, email GSD president, because we're trying to, because one thing we're struggling with is no actual person in the administration who deals with grad parents, where they're very much underserved. So email GSD president, and I will collectively lead on this as we move forward.
And to clarify, this is all graduate students.
All graduate students. So it is a very small population among us, approximately about 50 or so. And comparatively to America, we have a lot. Compared to the rest of the world, is nothing. So we're trying to make sure that those parents, our parents or fancy parents, are not pushed at risk. So I know that, for example, like there is a Sarah Boyle family liaison that we have on campus. There's also a community fellow, but this is too much to be pushing on students to do continual work. It needs to do more for the inside. So that's a conversation that both Abdullah and Ray are taking point on and they're trying to move forward with. So it's that.
Any other questions?
And for the fall, grad student thing, just full contact with questions or just like a wave of
Yeah, wave or anything like that is something that we need to get back on. But technically, the grad school does have information, but because of like transitioning out of COVID, like everything's changed again. So we're going back through policy to look at what their structures are, what isn't. And then the nice thing about going to ID Plus was seeing how much other universities do for their parents. So it's about seeing what the size of the population is, what's on offer, what can be changed. So it's about that's something that's going to be going on moving forward as we move into the next semester and beyond as well. It's going to be a continual process of increasing and helping in whichever way we can. And our final one, student life.
Okay, so keeping with the theme, to recap, approximately a month ago, we had GSC Hispanic Heritage Month Latin Night. It was, if anything, too much of a success. We budgeted and we're planning for somewhere between 50 to 60 people. We got something closer to about 150 people. So
worked really well. You did a good job. Lots of dancing, lots of food, grand time. For events this month, Thanksgiving trivia is set to go for tomorrow here at the lounge. And then the other event that I'm working on is the senior speaker series. An offer's been sent to Dr. Yusuf Salam, and we are just waiting for that to happen. We sent him several dates that could work. What we're aiming for is early to mid-ish December. So just be on the lookout for an email about when that's going to happen.
So exciting. And final thing, something I forgot to put in. It's something that we want to do for all of you as reps. We understand that you just really love our company, very brilliant. But you put in a lot of work, a lot of time. So next GBN meeting on December 7th, hopefully will be as quick and as efficient as we have been today as well. Then we're going to play with drink if you want it. We'll put some music on, everyone can hang. It's really important that you're doing this. We're really, really grateful. Of course, friends are welcome if they want to come, but it's primarily for you to say a big thank you. So that's why we've given you a month in advance to people online. So if you feel like you want to come in person, please come. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to actually not rather than us just shouting at you for an hour or so. It's important that you know how much we really appreciate the valuable work that you do. And if there's anything special you want, let us know. You can see what's in the budget. Now, are there any other questions? Anything for open time? Anything online anyone wants to discuss?
We have so Meg online is asking, they would like to follow up on the 6-year funding for grad students impacted by COVID. Currently, the university is guaranteed that 6-year students, that's 6 year to students who were in their 2nd year and above when we shut down. Students who were in their 1st year have not had that extended to them. Are we still pushing for that?
And we will be in terms of the discussions, but this is primarily going to be part of the union negotiations because this comes down to pay. So that's why the union is going to take point on that. The difficulty is the second, it's that whole premise that Brown, as you saw from Talus's presentation, is that Brown very much believes you should be out in 5 years, if not 6. So that's why they are not counting that 1st year, because theoretically you still had 4 years at that point. But it's something that's on, and especially with the COVID extension committees that's now been appointed, that's something that's being considered. And it's a big point of the union's negotiations coming up.
I do want to add on to that because I'm on the committee. So we can push that. I can push that if that's needed. Because I did push for current, well, 2nd years as of spring 2020 to get that funding, us along with the union as well to get that. So we can try to push that. And I think that shouldn't be big of a deal, especially if they're for the 1st year. If they need it, if there's a substantial, I guess, like delay for them as well. And I think we can see that in the past 3 years that it happened, even if we don't think it did matter. So I don't know if we're meeting. The committee should meet up pretty soon, and I can bring that up as well. So just want to say that.
Thank you. Meg also had the follow-up that, yeah, they have students who entered in their 1st year and were fully remote for that year. So they're also concerned about being behind.
So this is also a great example of why it's important to read our emails and do the surveys we send out every week. It's important because we're only 11 people, we're also students. It's really about also other people who are active in the community to help out. If nothing else, can I have a motion to end the meeting? A second. Voting for. Against. You voted against. We can stay until 9, don't worry. Holly agrees. Excellent. Right, wonderful. Thank you very much. See you next month.
Here.